Caitlin Clark going down and being shut down for the second half of the 2025 WNBA season felt at the time like the absolute worst-case scenario for the Indiana Fever. You lose your superstar, you lose your biggest draw, and most teams in that situation are already thinking about the draft, not the playoffs. But what actually happened in Indiana turned into one of the most surprising plot twists of the entire year, and it might be the foundation for something huge in 2026 and beyond. Instead of folding, the Fever dug in. Under first-year head coach Stephanie White, a team that easily could have spiraled ended up doing the opposite. They rallied around each other, found new ways to win, and pushed all the way to the playoff semifinals. That alone is impressive when you remember the expectations around them when Clark was ruled out. A rookie head coach, a young core, and suddenly no Caitlin Clark? Most people wrote them off. But that run showed there's a lot more substance in Indiana than just one star. The most important development in all of this was what happened with Kelsey Mitchell and Aliyah Boston once Clark was sidelined. With defenses no longer splitting their attention the same way, those two had to step into bigger roles, and they proved they were more than capable. Mitchell reminded everyone why she's one of the most dangerous guards in the league when she's aggressive, while Boston took a massive step forward in her evolution as a franchise cornerstone. Aliyah Boston especially looked like a completely different force by the end of that playoff run. The former #1 overall pick started to show exactly why so many people were calling her a future face of the league when she came out of college. She grew more confident, more assertive, and more comfortable being the primary option. That kind of growth usually takes years. She was speeding through it in a few crucial months without Clark in the lineup. That's the silver lining of a brutal situation. When a superstar goes down, someone has to fill that vacuum. Boston did it. She expanded her game, shouldered more responsibility on both ends, and proved she can carry a team when things get tough. Now, at just 24 years old, she's not only building her own legacy, she's getting ready to form one of the most terrifying duos in women's basketball alongside a healthy Caitlin Clark, and that's where 2026 starts to look really intriguing. Clark is expected back, Boston is coming off a breakout stretch, Mitchell has shown she can be a high-level scorer and secondary star, and Stephanie White now has proof that her system works even under serious adversity. You take all of that experience, add a fully healthy Clark back into the mix, and suddenly the Fever don't just look like a feel-good semifinal underdog, they look like a legitimate title threat. On top of that, Clark and Boston may have more chances than ever to build their chemistry, not just in the WNBA, but on the international stage as well. After the 2026 WNBA regular season wraps up, the basketball world's attention will shift to Berlin, Germany for the 2026 FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup. And if things go the way most people expect, Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston will both be wearing USA across their chests in that tournament. That possibility already started to take shape back in December when both Clark and Boston took part in USA Basketball's training camp. For a lot of fans, it was the first real glimpse of what those two could look like outside of Indiana, surrounded by the best of the best from around the country. Getting invited to that camp alone is a sign of how the national program views them, not just as talented young players, but as serious candidates to be part of the next generation of Team USA. Sports Illustrated's Robin Lundberg recently drew attention to some comments from Sue Bird that only added more fuel to the excitement. Bird, who isn't just a legend on the court, but also serves as the managing director of USA Basketball, had some very notable things to say about both Fever stars on her podcast. When someone with Sue Bird's resume and influence takes the time to single you out, you're definitely on the radar. Bird said that Aliyah Boston really jumped out to her during USA camp, talking about how good Boston looked and how it seemed like she'd really settled into her game at this level. She also mentioned Clark in a very positive way, pointing out that even though Clark barely played over the past year and had essentially missed an entire summer of competition, she still looked impressive in that environment. For that to be her first real day back at that level and still make an impact, that's the kind of thing USA Basketball pays close attention to. When the person helping shape the national team is publicly praising you, it's hard not to read that as a strong hint toward future selection. That's why so many people now believe that Boston will almost certainly be joining Clark on the World Cup roster if both are healthy. They've already shared the floor for Indiana. They've already been in USA camp together. The next logical step is seeing them wear the same jersey internationally when the stakes are the highest. If everything lines up, their 2026 calendar could look absolutely packed and incredibly important for their development. Imagine the sequence. First, a full WNBA regular season with the Fever, where Clark and Boston finally get extended time together, fully healthy, running through an entire year as the focal points of the franchise. That in itself could be enough to earn them a strong playoff seed in another deep run. Then, as soon as that regular season wraps up, they turn around and join Team USA for the FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup in Berlin. That means weeks of traveling, training, and playing side by side in a totally different system against the best players in the world from other countries under the pressure of international expectations. If they lead Team USA to a World Cup gold medal, their profile rises even higher and their chemistry grows with every possession. After that, they would head straight back into WNBA playoff mode with Indiana, carrying whatever momentum they built with the national team right back into the league. That is a lot of basketball in a short span of time, but it's also an incredible opportunity. You're talking about two franchise players potentially spending almost the entire year locked in, competing at the highest level and constantly sharpening their connection. The more time Clark and Boston spend together on the court, the more dangerous they become. You could already see hints of it before Clark's entry. The pick and roll options, the spacing, the way Boston's presence inside opens up the perimeter, and how Clark's shooting pulls defenders away from the paint. Add in all that extra game time in both the WNBA and with Team USA, and you're looking at the kind of partnership that can define an era.
There's also a mental side to this that matters just as much as the physical and tactical side. Going through something as tough as losing a star for half a season, then fighting all the way to the semifinals, builds a certain level of trust inside a team. Boston knows what it feels like to carry more of the load. Clark knows what it feels like to be forced to watch, then slowly work her way back. They've both had to deal with pressure from different angles, and that shared experience can make them even stronger once they're fully back together. For Clark, getting that USA basketball stamp of approval so soon after such a disrupted year is also a huge confidence boost. It tells her and everyone around her that the people in charge of selecting the national team still see her as one of the key players for the future. For Boston, hearing someone like Sue Bird say she stood out in camp validates all the work she's done since taking on a bigger role in Indiana. It confirms that her growth isn't just something Fever fans are noticing, it's visible at the highest levels of the sport. From the Fever's point of view, this is about as ideal a long-term scenario as you can draw up, even if the path to get here was painful. They have a young star guard and a young star big, both of whom are on USA Basketball's radar, both of whom just proved they can be focal points in different situations. They've already shown they can win even when things go wrong. Now they're entering a phase where, if health holds up, they can build on all of that with continuity and experience. Of course, there are challenges that come with such a loaded schedule. Playing a full WNBA season and then immediately heading into a World Cup is exhausting. The physical toll is real, and so is the mental fatigue. The Fever and USA Basketball will both have to be smart about managing minutes, recovery, and expectations. But at the same time, the very best players in the world often go through exactly this kind of grind. It's part of what sharpens them. For fans, it sets up a fascinating year to watch. Every Fever game in 2026 won't just be about the standings. It'll also be a preview of what Clark and Boston might bring to Team USA. Every time they run a two-player action, every time they make a read off each other, you can view it on two levels: what it means for Indiana and what it might mean when they're facing off against Spain, Australia, or France on a global stage in Berlin. And then, if they do end up winning a World Cup together, imagine the kind of confidence and aura they'd bring back into the WNBA playoffs. You'd have a pair of teammates who just spent the summer proving themselves against the world's best, winning medals, and stepping into leadership roles for the national team. That kind of experience can easily spill over into the league, raising the standard for everyone around them. It's easy to forget, with all the hype and all the talk, that both Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston are still so young. They're still figuring things out, still adding pieces to their games, still learning what it means to be the face of a franchise and potentially part of the core of Team USA. But 2025 and 2026 are shaping up like pivotal years that could accelerate that entire process. What once looked like a pure disaster, Clark being shut down and missing the back half of a season, might go down as the moment that forced everyone else in Indiana to grow up faster. Boston had to become that player who could dominate without Clark. Mitchell had to raise her level. Stephanie White had to coach a different way. And now, with Clark on the way back and a World Cup on the horizon, the Fever suddenly have a deeper, tougher, more experienced foundation under their star. So when you think about 2026 for Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston, don't just think of it as another season. Think of it as a potential turning point, a year where they could lead the Indiana Fever to another strong regular season and playoff run, a year where they could stand side by side in Berlin chasing a World Cup title for USA basketball, and a year where all of that extra time together, all of that shared pressure and success could turn them into the kind of duo that changes the balance of power in the WNBA. They're going to be on the court a lot. They're going to be around each other almost non-stop, from training camp to the regular season, from USA practices to international arenas, and then back into the WNBA playoffs. That's how great partnerships are built, not just in highlight clips, but in long, grinding months of practice, travel, and big games. The question now isn't whether Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston have the talent. That part is obvious. The question is how high they can go together, and how quickly. If 2025 was the year they survived and surprised, 2026 has all the ingredients to be the year they really arrive, not just as individual stars, but as one of the most dangerous duos in women's basketball.